Defining the main use cases for conversational interfaces is one of the most important stages in the conversational design process. And creating the masswork utterances is one of the most important activity at this stage. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about the best practices for the utterance design. Let's go! And my tip number one, define utterances from the user perspective and focus on the most important and frequently used utterances. You should consider the utterances that your users would really say instead of covering all possible combinations or all possible variations that could exist in this world. For example, the probability that the user would say to the voice assistant something like, "I wish you could switch on the lights in the living room," instead of switch on the lights in the living room is very low, if not zero. So there is no need to cover all these edge cases. And I'm coming to the tip number two, and it's avoid edge cases. As mentioned already in the previous tip, you should concentrate on the real world utterance usage instead of covering everything. Of course, we have to give our users the flexibility of using language, but still we should have the common sense in defining the real use cases. There are use cases which are even not appropriate for the conversational interfaces, or there are utterances which are very long or complicated or cumbersome to pronounce. For example, if you have a lot of entity combinations in one utterance, I'm pretty much sure that the users won't say something like, "Show me the weather for Berlin, Germany for today at 5 o'clock in the evening, and tell me if I should take a raincoat with me." Of course, there might be some users that could try something like that out, but actually it's a real edge case. And such edge cases should be covered in the error handling and not be part of a happy path. And also, such edge cases will produce a lot of implementation and testing effort, and we should definitely avoid them because it just doesn't make any sense if no one is using such utterances. And my tip number three, avoid using synonyms as value variations for slots or entities which are even not used in the everyday language or everyday life. And again, this is one of the roughest mistakes that people usually do while defining the utterances or training their language model. First, it doesn't make any sense to cover everything from the dictionary if these words are not even used. And second, we should avoid overfitting the language model with all possible garbage in there. And my tip number four, define utterances and intents in a very clear way. Maybe for such interfaces like Alexa, it's not that crucial, as for the Alexa skills, you also need an extra skill invocation name, maybe except for the skills which are native. But imagine, for example, that you're working with a system which is open and doesn't have any a specific invocation name for a skill or a goal. Imagine that you're working on the chatbot. In this case, you definitely should differentiate the utterances in a very clear way. Of course, you might have some overlappings, but still you need to prioritize your utterances. But of course, it always depends on the system. All systems are very different. And you should always read the documentation on how to deal with utterances and intents. You should always consider the system and the best practices for each NLU system. And my tip number five, validate your assumptions and always try to explore their data usage. You can always retrain or refine your language model, add or delete utterances, or create new intents. Basically, handling the language or model should always depend on the real utterance usage. Just keep on validating, exploring them, and remember that at the very beginning it's very important that you, as a conversational designer, always concentrate on the most important use cases. And if you don't have any data, just go outside and talk to people, observe the people, how they're talking to other voice assistants, do a benchmarking analysis, learn about conversational design, learn about conversational analysis, and collect the data or do some user research. And what best practices do you have for designing utterances? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. And if you enjoy this video so far, just drop a like and subscribe for more videos just like that. See you next time.